Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to this series of interesting conversations that we've been having on the subject of people at work, driven by data and distributed by design. Today, I have a special privilege of introducing S.V. Nathan, good friend of mine, partner and chief talent officer of Deloitte India. Nathan has been a thought leader in this field, and he will bring to us, I am sure today, another insightful, maybe a different angle to the kind of conversations we've been having on this subject. So Nathan, we've been talking about employee experience and the role of technology in that, how the HR organization will change in the new world. And what I want to discuss with you, because I know you've been thinking about this subject, is this idea of autonomy and governance. So when you work from anywhere and you're not in an office, you're not physically seen by your manager, the manager is not walking the corridors, how do notions of autonomy and governance change? And I know you've done some work on how people are supervised, tracked, or not. So tell us a little more about how these fundamental notions will change in the new world.
So Nalin, thank you so much for bringing me on to this podium. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. The world of work and what's happening today is really fascinating. In the last 9 months, there have been tumultuous changes. If you just look at what's happening around, for the first time ever, we've had almost the majority of our young people who are completely unsupervised. Work is carrying on. Work possibly is doing much better because your productivity has gone up anywhere between 11 to 15%. And this, when there is no manager who's looking over the shoulder or people running from one end to the other end just to check whether what job they are doing, are they in the right corner or whether they are correct or what. So that's fascinating. The very notion that if I'm left to myself, I would do a good job. The second thing that has happened is managers on the other side start to think, okay, if all these people are self-managed and if they are able to discharge their duties to the best of their abilities, then what is my unique contribution? And they also start to think, okay, what more can I do that makes my role a lot more valued by the firm? So that's where the manager comes in. The third element is you have technology in the mix.
Right.
So when I get my work done, instead of going and checking with somebody, there is technology that helps me. So it's almost in a non-threatening way, I'm working. Man and people are now working together, and machines and women working together and making sure that there is a product that's brought about, there is a service that is rendered, and everybody feels happy about this. Also recognize in all of whatever that is happening around, the individual starts to think, okay, if I can do this job all by myself, I have a sense of power which is around me and a certain sense of goodness that comes in because I feel that if I can do this, then perhaps my manager need not have come and told me this is the right way to do it, that's the wrong way to do it.
Yes,
so overall,
yes.
I think that's a huge thing that has come about.
So I think you brought in 2 or 3 layers which are very profound. One of them was, of course, this idea that the manager is now wondering, what is my unique role? I just don't have to manage people who I can visibly see and I'm surrounded by, but what is my unique role? And the second thing that you brought up was this idea of technology working with men and women on helping them manage their work and perform better in a non-threatening way. And when that happens, what you're saying is that the power that a person feels brings a certain goodness, which all these years we knew was there, that if you empower people, there is a goodness you can capture. But we came in our own way. I think we couldn't help ourselves but
Coming in
come
the
in the
way.
way of
Yeah.
of the people. So if you think like that, Nathan, and the manager's role is now transforming, the employee is becoming more powerful in a good and constructive way. What does that do to the hierarchy? Do you see how does that work? Do you see any disintermediation? Do you see how does organization design evolve to this new reality?
So absolutely. See, there are huge changes which are happening in an organization. So for the first time, people have started to look at alternative talent models. I don't have to look at having all the people on my rolls. I'm looking at people who could be gig workers, part-time workers, people who want to work on flexi time. So these are all completely new notions, and all of them can work. And all of them are predicated on the foundations of trust.
Right.
If I can trust somebody into saying, okay, I'm going to assign this particular job to you, please have this done and rendered to me. So that's what a gig worker would do. So, in a way, that's a huge change. At an organization level, what it'll translate to is people will then ask, will question, do I need all these managers? If you look at any organization, the managerial population would be anywhere between 20 to 25, perhaps even 30% in people intensive organizations. In normal service organizations, manufacturing organizations, a tad less, but you'll find in many places the managers will form a big bulk. When I say managers, senior managers, directors, all the way, but not really the top management. So if I compress that and put all that in that managerial band, you can start to say, okay, do we need all these people? Maybe we can get them to do something else. So I think disintermediation will happen. We will find different models coming up. And the very notion of having to have people who are colleagues for life or employees for life is now undergoing a subtle change. And that's
So
happening right in front of us.
yes. So I think the idea that disintermediation will, of course, transform organizations, and there were so many interesting points there. So I want to see if I can pick them all up one by one. So first was the point of trust and what role that will play. And the second is the point of, you said, the relationship with the company. And I know we've been talking about the end of lifetime employment for a long time, but have we now moved to an idea of almost free agency? Where I met somebody the other day and she said to me, I'm anyway looking at a screen and working. It doesn't matter whether it is this company or that. So the idea of I have a set of resources which I can port anywhere. So these are the two concepts. Let's talk a little more about. First, the idea of trust. What are the implications of this? You said if you can trust gig workers, certainly you can trust your employees. And if more and more trust is provided, then that actually makes the whole working environment much more human, something which we've all been wanting all this while, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at the whole notion about trust, trust is really at the farthest end of a continuum. When a job is given, you do it correctly. Second time round, third time round, you start to say, okay, here is a person who at one point is very good at repeatability. And repeatability leads on to reliability. And along that continuum, if you move farthest, that is trust. So you trust somebody. Um, right now, all around the world, you would have almost about 84% of organizations who trust their employees implicitly and say, you're working from home. Well, this is outcome driven. I'm not very worried whether I have to go and find a software which will tell me whether you're clicking away or whether your laptop is open. I don't have to do all of that. The 16% of those organizations which are in a way spying, that's a strong word. When I say they are looking over the shoulder to check whether people are working, are also starting to think, do we really have to do this?
Right.
So trust at that level will start to have greater engagement with an organization. When somebody trusts me, implicitly it also implies that there is a greater level of responsibility that is placed on me. If I'm left all by myself, my God, if I have to do this, then I better do a good job of it. So that's what is happening. Also, when you start to trust, there are new behaviors that come by. For instance, till the day before, you and I were in classroom training people on how to be working with others and how collaboration occurs. Today, collaboration is a natural, it's given. If you look at the millennial population, the younger population of our large workforce anywhere in the world, they're not going to come up with the bosses to go and check. They're not coming to the managers. They'll go check on their friends who will be very ready to share with them whatever that's happening. The very notion of crowdsourcing that has happened today is all predicated on I can work with another person, there's collaboration, and the underlying behavior is predicated on trust. So, in a way, I see trust as one of the biggest outcomes of what has happened in today's world.
That is really profound, Nathan. And let me see if I can build on this and whether you agree on that. Because when we start talking about trust, we many times think of I trust you, or you trust me. But when I trust you, you trust me becomes the norm, then I trust myself even more, right? I have greater confidence in what I will do, and I trust others. Uh, so that improves, exactly to use your word, the outcomes, which is what we are
Yeah,
seeking to improve. You also mentioned this idea of collaboration becoming better. That is a very important point because those that think that the distributed workforce, they'll say it's good for productivity, it's good for engagement, we get that, but not for collaboration. But what we are finding that indeed, even on the platform of collaboration, distributed workforces are doing well, and they are collaborating with communities and peers and colleagues and friends and seeking information, and not just believing that information and knowledge flows top down.
yes,
So that is also where technology is playing a role, right? We are thinking of ourselves as part of certain set of digital communities rather than a vertical organization.
absolutely, absolutely. And I start to believe that if I have if I have somebody who's going to help me along, it just makes me feel a lot more comfortable about myself. Today, that somebody who is alongside working with you is the machine. That's technology. So people and machine are now starting to engage. And that is a phenomenon which is going to increase in leaps and bounds because technology is an unstoppable phenomenon. And that's something which is starting to help us. Whether you talk about AI, robotics, you name the new technologies coming by, all these are meant to help individuals.
Yes, absolutely. And individuals and communities, and whenever, let's say, pre-COVID, we thought of technology, we thought of it as an intrusion or an erosion of our jobs, all of that. Turns out that technology is actually creating a new work place or a work environment or a work reality, I don't even know what to call it, but which is much more human and positive than what we had before. And suddenly, in a few months, all our models of managing trust, empowerment, accountability, governance are transforming, just like you talked about in the last few minutes. I think that's a great point, Nathan, to close our very interesting conversation. Uh, I promise the audience that speaking with you will bring in some very different and new insights into this whole idea of people at work. And sure enough, it has been absolutely at one level deep and profound, and at another level quite practical, but all the same very interesting. So thank you very much, Nathan. And I know that you will join us on October 28th on our panel for the summit about people at work, driven by data, distributed by design. And thanks very much. Our audience and our entire team is very grateful to you. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nalin. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I totally enjoyed the conversation. Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
look forward.
Thank you.